Next up, we have FendX Technologies, Inc. It trades on the OTCQB under the symbol FDXTF and on the CSE under the symbol FNDX, and is a Canada-based nanotechnology company focused on developing products to make people's lives safer by reducing the spread of pathogens. Please welcome its CEO, Carolyn Myers. Nice to see you, Carolyn. How are you today?
I'm good, Anna. Thanks.
Great. The floor is yours, Carolyn. Call me back when you're ready for questions.
Okay. Let me just put up the slides. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. It's nice to be here again. I had the opportunity to present back in the fall, and we've had a lot of updates since then. But I'll go into some of the background of what we're doing and then provide some updates since the last time I presented. So we are a nanotechnology company. Our goal is to keep surfaces clean from contamination, particularly potentially lethal pathogens. But before I get started, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I've been in the pharmaceutical industry most of my career, and I have worked for some of the large cap companies in the New Jersey area, and have held very senior level positions within those companies, heading up commercial, heading up business development. In my tenure with my teams, we've launched probably more than 25 products in the US and globally. And from a BD standpoint, have done a number of transactions, well over 40 licensing and M&A transactions. And I've also had the opportunity to be the president of two pharmaceutical businesses, one a revenue generating business and the other one a film development business, which is 360 to what I'm going to talk about today, and why these films that we're developing and our sprays, etc., is something that is pretty interesting to me. So with that, I'll talk to you a little bit about what we're doing. So this is our forward-looking statement. As I mentioned, we're a nanotechnology company. We're focused on keeping surfaces safe or clean from bacteria and viruses. And why are we doing this? Well, the problem is that you may know that about 80% of common infections are actually transmitted by touch. And you may also know that healthcare-acquired infections, that would be in the hospital, long-term care, et cetera, are one of the top 10 frequent causes of death in the US and globally, quite frankly. In the US alone, close to 100,000 people die annually, and it costs a significant amount of money to manage these infections. And part of the reason for the numbers of deaths as well as the cost is that most of these infections are from bacteria that are antibiotic resistant. So there are no proven treatments to combat these. And so it really, what it comes down to is the patient using their own immune system to combat these bugs. So what are we doing? We're developing products that protect high-touch surfaces, as well as we're looking at an opportunity to coat catheters with our technology. And I'll get into that in a little bit more detail. We've licensed our IP from McMaster University, and in their lab have shown a significant reduction in adherence of bacteria, viruses, blood, and other liquids to our surfaces. And I'll talk a little bit more about our surfaces in a minute. So these are our products in development. We have a film, which is called Repel Wrap Film. It's our most advanced product. You can see that in the diagram on the right. We're in scale-up pilot manufacturing runs with our manufacturer Dunmore, just outside of Philadelphia. We have done a few pilot runs with them, and we're seeing great progress as we move forward to finalize the manufacturing production. Our spray it's a spray coating. Essentially what it does is when you spray it on, it creates the same film that Repel Wrap Film does. It's a little bit earlier in development. We're in the process of finalizing the formula. And then, as I mentioned, we're also looking at coating catheters, because you may know that bacterial infections associated with catheters is significantly high. And one of the areas that we're focused on is Foley catheters, or catheters that go into the bladder, and coating them to see if we can reduce the infection rates. So let's just talk a little bit about Repel Wrap Film. As I mentioned, it's our lead product in development. The film, our spray, then the nano coating we're developing for our catheter all provide immediate 24/7 protection for extended periods of time. And the reason for this is because the surface of our films is essentially inert, and nothing sticks to them. And so as a consequence, if bacteria, viruses, for example, come in contact with the surface, they essentially can't stick, or they stay on the hand based on the physical dynamics of the surface. So what our plan is for our first product is to create a film that has an adhesive backing that can go onto push doors or push handles or other surfaces that are of this nature, as well as on railings, etc. So that's really our first opportunity. We're looking at markets like healthcare, also other high-touch traffic venues, transportation, schools. And here it just gives you an idea of how well the repelling properties are. When you look at COVID-19, 99% reduction in adhesion. That means they don't stick, they stay on the hand versus sticking to the surface. The same with certain bacteria, all of which of these are antibiotic resistant. So where are we with Repel Wrap Film? Well, as I mentioned, we are currently conducting pilot manufacturing runs with our manufacturer, Dunmore. What we've been able to achieve, and initially in the fall, was that we confirm we can automate the Repel Wrap formulation process on Dunmore's machines, this is in essence what it looks like. It's a roll to roll. This is the film. It goes in here, it gets coated with the nanotechnology, it comes up, it gets dried and heated and dried, and then it comes back around and it gets rolled up. So that's what we've been able to achieve. And since that initial confirmation of the ability to manufacture it, we've been fine-tuning or streamlining the process so that we can reduce the time that it spends on these lines, because as you probably know, the longer it takes to do the manufacturing, the more costly. So that's our goal, is to decrease the amount of time it takes to actually get to a final coated film. So our spray, as I mentioned, it's in an earlier state of development. We're in the process of finalizing the formulation for purposes of scale up. We have signed a master services agreement with a company called Nanocomposites, who are nanoparticle specialists. In their facility, they have both an R&D as well as a commercial manufacturing division. So they are instrumental in helping us to finalize the formulation, do the initial assessment and intermediate scale up of the spray, and then potentially move into the commercial manufacturing. So again, you can see some really good rates of repelling of the bacteria as well as viruses. But what this also has is the ability to kill. And so if any bugs do happen to get on the surface, they are killed almost up to 100%. So how are our film and spray different than the competition? Well, most of the competition or products that are used today are liquid disinfectants. And while they are effective when being used, the fact is it's not humanly possible to use them 24/7. So you wipe surfaces, it cleans and kills what's on that surface, but as soon as it's dry, those surfaces again are prone to contamination. So that we believe that our products, in combination with the liquid disinfectants, which are the current standard practice, can provide synergy in terms of potentially reducing the transmission of bugs between person to person or surface to surface. There are other films. They're metal coated or they're photoactive films. Again, they're very effective. As you know, I show here. But they can create bacterial resistance because the bacteria actually have to stick to the surface in order to be killed. So it gives them an opportunity, if they're replicating, to mutate, to create a mutation that makes them resistant to the element that's actually killing them. And in addition to that, as I mentioned, the bugs have to stick to it. They don't die instantly. It takes time. And so there still potentially is a window of opportunity for those bugs to be transmitted. Let me just talk a little bit about our nano coating for catheters. We announced this in December, and we're pretty excited about this because the infection rates associated with Foley catheters in the US is over 1 million a year, and it can cost a significant amount of money depending on the severity of the infection. Again, these bugs are more than likely antibiotic resistant. And what we've shown in McMaster's lab very early on is that we can reduce attachment of E. coli by almost 97%. So the whole concept here is to finalize a nano coating that will coat the catheter, then will lead into preclinical studies to get proof of concept data to confirm that we actually reduce the infection rate versus control catheters. That would be those that don't have the coating on them. And if we get positive proof of concept, then we'll move into working towards a partnership with one of the major catheter companies to assist in the development and the clinical studies, which will actually de-risk this program for us and potentially provide us revenue through upfronts and regulatory and development milestones until the product comes to market. We have a robust patent portfolio that we continue to expand on. For the film coating, our Chinese patent has been granted. It was granted in the fall of last year. And in the US and Europe, it is currently being examined by the patent offices, and we anticipate hearing from them and hopefully having those patents granted in this year or early in 2025. But you can see we have a patent that covers our spray. We also have a patent that covers the catheter coating, et cetera. So all of the products we have in development are covered under our current patents. But as I say, we're continuing to expand. How are we going to manufacture and distribute our products once we have products for commercialization? We're not going to use our capital to build manufacturing facilities or build sales and marketing teams because it's a significant amount of capital, and there are ways to streamline this to get to the market faster. And so the way we're going to do it is to use contract manufacturers. Dunmore may become our contract manufacturer for our film. We haven't signed a manufacturing agreement with them at this point, and potentially nanocomposites, depending on how we progress with the spray. And we will use sales distributors, or we'll license the product to sell it into Canada as well as the US and other countries. The plan is to launch Repel Wrap film once we get through all the stages that we need to get through in Canada. And we will use distributors that are well-versed in the hospital and long-term care settings to introduce and distribute our products into the healthcare area. And we already have connections in other high-traffic venue areas. And once we have a film that we're comfortable can meet the performance metrics and the cost of goods we want, then we will engage those folks to get us into some of these other high traffic, high touch point locations, as I mentioned, like transportation, schools, arenas, gyms, etc. And then in the US, we anticipate we would license our products. I mean, Stryker is an example of a company we may potentially partner with because they actually have a $1 billion PPE division, and all those products are actually introduced into healthcare. So, I think this would be a very innovative opportunity for them to add to their pipeline. So what is our growth strategy? Well, we're exploring additional uses of our nanotechnology beyond the 3 that we currently have in our pipeline. But what I know from the many years I've spent in business development and business strategy is that you can't just grow organically. You have to bring in assets. And so we are actively exploring our opportunities to bring into the organization. My preference is creative assets, but we'll see. But the idea is to bring in assets that are a little bit more advanced to be able to add to our pipeline. So to be synergistic under the umbrella of infectious disease control, to, as I say, expand our pipeline as well as our IP portfolio. As I mentioned, we will launch Repel Wrap film in Canada first. Then we'll move to the U.S. and then other global markets. Let me just say one thing about Repel Wrap film. Given where we are with our pilot manufacturing runs, if this next run, and we just announced it last week, we're doing another pilot run with Dunmore. If this next run gets us to where we want to be, the next step after that is to do beta testing or real world environmental testing, because we have not done that yet. All the testing we've done to assess the performance of our films has been done in the lab. So we'll do real world testing. And once that's completed, then we will actually move into commercial production. We don't need Health Canada approval to bring the film to market. So we would bring the product to market once we're comfortable that we have a film that meets the performance measures, and we'll bring it into the Canadian market. And we anticipate that could be by the end of this year, 2024. Our spray, we probably will be in commercial production, assuming everything goes as planned, in 2025. And then with our catheter coating, we anticipate that we could engage a licensing opportunity sometime in 2025 as well. So we anticipate being revenue generating in early 2025. And then as we move forward, obviously, as we bring the products to market, and we launch in the US, et cetera, we'll have the opportunity to increase that revenue. This is the team. I've talked about myself. Andrea Mulder is my COO. She's a very, very, very good operator. We work very synergistically together. She is in charge of the operations and moving the business forward, and has done an amazing job to get us where we are today and meet the milestones that we set out to meet as of today. Rose is our CFO. She has tremendous experience in the financial area, but also in company management, business development, securities, et cetera. So she is an instrumental part of the team. And then our board is lean, but it's a good board. Stephen Randall is a finance guy who heads up our audit committee. He worked at Titan for many years as CFO and then moved onto the board, and has tremendous experience in finance, as well as the inner workings of companies, which has been helpful to us. Pierre Szilard is a securities lawyer, but he has tremendous experience in being in organizations and growing them to success. But he also has the governance and the securities background, which is very useful for us. And last, I just want to show you our share structure. It's very tight, and we set it up that way intentionally. You can see we have about 56 million common shares, stock options, warrants. A bunch of them are coming due at the end of this week, and we're hoping that we can have all of those exercised by the end of this week. Bonus shares, these go to the These go to the inventors if they meet certain milestones, so they're performance based. And the last thing I want to say is that of the 56 million, about half of it, or just under half of it, is locked up through pooling agreements or escrow. And it'll eventually, and it's mostly like myself, the other management team, the early investors, and other founders of the company. We're very dedicated and committed to making this company successful, and so we are all locked up. But in the coming months, couple of years, our stock will start becoming free trading. And with that, I'm going to close it and say thank you very much.
Great job, Carolyn. Okay, we do have some questions for you. Let's jump right in. Mitchell Williams wants to know, have you had any successful public company exits? What's the goal? Is it to grow or have it acquired by a major?
Well, we're both. At the end of the day, what my goal is to get the stock price up, get the valuation up, and some will be opportunistic in terms of are there companies out there that are very synergistic with what we're doing, and merging with them, having them acquire us, us acquiring them. So I mean, ultimately, I think the goal is to get acquired or acquire something larger, and then ultimately get to make us larger, I should say, and then ultimately, have this company acquired. I mean, I've done, as I mentioned, I've got a pretty extensive background in M&A and licensing, and so this is an area that is a key focus of mine, and have been with companies that have been taken over by Pfizer, et cetera.
Okay. We have a few questions from Grace and Alan concerning the film. Talk a little bit more about it. How visible is it? How noticeable? Is it clear? And how long will the film stay effective with protective properties? Does it have to be changed out?
Yeah, so the film is not clear. It is opaque. Which I think is actually a good thing, because it when you put it on a surface, it shows that surface is protected. As it relates to the performance of the films, we have had films on stability, and we test them regularly, and they're very durable. And so, I mean, in theory, you could leave these in place for an extended period of time. Obviously, we want to have this as a revenue generating opportunity. So we are putting together economics that make sense to guide the end user in terms of the frequency with which they should replace the films.
We have a few questions. I'm trying to combine Nora, Sandoval, and Clayton talking about when will this be available for sale? When is it going to market?
So, yeah, the Repel Wrap film, if everything goes as planned, we anticipate having a product for commercialization in Canada at the end of 2024. And we'll sign up distributors to be able to distribute it in healthcare, and we'll also look at other potential partners for other high traffic venues. And so we anticipate being revenue generating in the first half of 2025 with that product.
And Spencer Carson asks, do all your products have that same kill feature?
No, the film does not. It only repels. Its performance is very good, though. It's 98, 99%. But it does not have the kill factor. It's just the spray. The nanoparticles that were used in the spray are actually metal ion containing nanoparticles, and so that's why it has this additional kill factor. And that obviously the coating on the catheter will not have metal ions in it, because they're kind of frowned upon in terms of medical use.
A few questions. One from Jean, talking about the structure. What's the R&D and the origin of your company? Was it created and under development by the university, and FendX is the face of the company? If you can talk about its structure.
Yeah, sure. My co-founder was the one that identified this technology. It was actually featured on CNN. And he's a serial entrepreneur. And so he asked if I would look into this nanotechnology as to whether this is something worth pursuing. And so we decided to form a company around it. It's actually independent of McMaster. So we created it. My co-founder and myself are not associated with McMaster, so this is an independent company. However, we do work very closely with McMaster on the development, and we have collaborative research agreements with them to do the R&D for all of our projects. The company was actually incorporated in the July of 2020, and then we licensed IP from McMaster for the film in early 2021. And then the IP for the spray was in the spring of 2023. And then we started the catheter project in December. That catheter project, or the nanotechnology, actually falls under the IP for the film. So we didn't have to do another licensing agreement.
Great. Well, lots of positive comments on that catheter project. Mike, Alta Marie asks, what does the license agreement of the IP look like? Is the IP covering all of your products or just the film?
It's covering all the products. Well, obviously, we have different patent families. There's a patent family for the film. There's a patent family for the spray, as well as the catheter coating. So we are covered for each of the products that we're developing, or the nanotechnology formulations we're developing. As it relates to the license agreement, both agreements, one for the film and for the spray, we essentially are working with the university and pay for all the R&D. And the license agreement, both of them are worldwide exclusive for 20 years. And so we're paying for the R&D. We have folks working exclusively on our projects. We currently have 3 postdocs and 2 technicians. When one of the products, whether it's the spray, the catheter coating, or the film, come to market and we start becoming revenue generating, McMaster gets about a 4% royalty.
Okay. We'd like you to talk a little bit more about your working relationship with Dunmore. It seems to be very productive. So what are you expecting in the next 6 months with that collaboration?
Yeah, I mean, we're working tremendously well. It's a very collaborative arrangement that we have with Dunmore, and they have been instrumental, along with McMaster, in helping us to advance the film. What's interesting is when we licensed the IP from McMaster, we essentially got a prototype film that was the size of a quarter. And it was basically plastic that was covered with the nanotechnology, the size of a quarter. And what we need to do is say, okay, how are we going to take that to the manufacturing, which I showed you in a previous slide, which is the roll-to-roll manufacturing. Let me see if I can find that here. This here. And so this really was an incredible milestone for us to achieve, and we couldn't have done it without Dunmore and without McMaster. Think about it, a quarter-size film that took 24 hours to make, and now we're coating thousands of feet of film literally in minutes. So that is what we've been able to achieve with Dunmore. And, you know, as I say, it's a very collaborative, cooperative relationship, and we're going to be doing our fourth pilot run with them. If that pilot run is successful, which we anticipate it will be, then we'll move into the beta testing, real world testing, which will take about a month, 2 months. And after we get the results of that, assuming everything is performing as it should, then we'll move into commercial production, which I anticipate will be late summer, early fall. We'll already have the production of it figured out. It's just now a matter of doing the commercial level production and packaging of the product for commercialization, which we anticipate will have by the end of 2024, for giving us the opportunity to be revenue generating in early 2025 or the first half of 2025.
Yeah, and maybe close with this, Carolyn, the follow-on spray, it's definitely showing promise. So what advancements do you expect to achieve in the next 6 to 12 months, maybe in general as well with all of your products?
Yeah, the spray, if we are successful in creating a spray product, it could potentially be game-changing. Think about it. You spray, rather than a film, which, okay, a film you can put on surfaces, but it is limited. You can't really put it on a doorknob or those kinds of form factors. A spray you can essentially put on anything. And so it really, and also it, potentially is easier to apply. And if we can get to a final formulation, I don't anticipate the scale up is going to be the problem here, because you're talking about going from, a small volume to a larger volume. I don't anticipate that to be too difficult, although everything has its iterations. But the potential exists. It could be used on many more surfaces and many other form factors, and it may have the opportunity to be even used beyond the high touch surfaces. And so where we are with that, as I mentioned, is we did sign a master services agreement with Nanocomposites. And we're working with them to finalize the formulation. They'll assess the scale up, and then they'll move into scale up. I anticipate we can probably be through this process by the end of this year. And if that's the case, then we potentially will be, and we'll do beta testing again, as we are with the film. The potential exists we could bring a product to market in 2025.
Well, exciting times. We definitely want to follow you along with your updates on our conference, Carolyn. Hope you come back. Thank you so much. Great presentation today.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks, everybody.
All right. We'll see you again soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Everyone stay with us. We'll be right back with Therammune.